My guest for the morning is Kobe Champong, and he's the outgoing Chief Executive or Executive Director for the Youth Employment Agency. And thanks for joining me, Kobe.
Thank you.
The announcement just came yesterday. Okay, has been speculated initially by the media, and then we get in some snippets of confirmation. So it's been confirmed you're going now?
Yes.
All right. Any rationale for it?
Well, I am not the appointing authority, so I would not be able to give a rationalize it. Yeah, I can't do that.
Now, would you say since you came into office, there's been some number of achievements that have been made, especially with the focus being to restructure what the former youth employment was, and then turning into JIDA into an employment agency?
Yes, we've achieved a lot. I came in with two things at the back of my mind. That JIDA, as it was then known, needed strong leadership and strong management. Leadership and management are two different things. But for an organization that had gone through the kind of problems it had gone through, it was important that we establish strong leadership first and provide strong management. Basically, leadership was about coping with change, because we needed to change how the organization did things. And management was about coping with the complexities of the organization itself, mundane daily things. So that is what I provided, and in the process we've achieved a lot. We've gotten a bill passed. In the bill, it sets out the governance structures of the institution. It sets out our clear funding sources. It sets out our reporting mechanisms and requirements. For the one that I'm particularly happy about is the fact that we needed an internal auditor for the agency, which is part of the bill, and the decentralization part of it, where we move it from top to bottoms up approach, you know. And we've achieved that. In fact, as I speak, we're in the process of rolling out programs for the new models that we had worked on assiduously over the period. The security services model, the youth in agric model, youth in agric processing. We're going to do the CHIPS compound model, community education, teaching assistance model. You know, these were the things that we wanted to do. And I'd given it a new direction. Hitherto, JIDA relied a lot on service providers. And I said, no, you can't spend government money that way. We have a staff strength of about 630 people. You need to give them a new orientation and training so that they can take up the mantle of delivering on some of these things. So I took 300 people to JIMPA for training in monitoring and evaluation. They are now ready to help the program to roll out. I've designed a new template in terms of how programs are managed. Hitherto, one person was called a model coordinator. Now I have an implementation team made up of a regional head, district head, and a team of program and project assistants to facilitate all these things going on. So we have achieved and accomplished a lot in the term that I've been there.
But would you say all these that have been achieved, i.e., initially there were the concerns that the regulation was not right, and the formal processes of the reporting lines also were not well structured and all. Those will give it the best sound footing going
Exactly. We've established those things. In fact, as part of the law, we put in the fact that there should be departments, specific departments: operations, research, monitoring and evaluations, finance and administration. It's captured in the law, which means there will be a CEO with two deputies, one in charge of operations, one in charge of finance and administration. There's also a technical advisor component for the things that we needed expertise outside of the organization. And then when you come down, line directors, we have the operations director, finance, research, monitoring, and then research and monitoring, and monitoring and evaluation set out there. And then on top of all that was a board. JIDA never had a board. So there was a board. So from the policy perspective, the board was supposed to help the chief executive run the organization based on the policy initiatives of the government.
Issues of strategy and
exactly.
things like that. Okay.
And also we put in, there should be a company solicitor or secretary, distinct from the previous position where the executive director or CEO is a secretary to the board. I thought it was not necessary for the same person to perform those two functions. There should be a specific person as secretary to the board, you know. So we've done a whole lot.
So there's adequate delineation of roles.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
well, that's more appropriate. And it means where have you been reassigned to?
Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communication.
Do you see it coming?
No.
Okay, you didn't see it coming. Yeah. Is that how it goes, appointment in the public? Sometimes
well,
when
I always say we all serve at the pleasure of the president, and he decides what he wants to do at any particular time.
All right. We'll say congratulations to you then.
Thank you
for your good work done as far as year is concerned. That's from JIDA and turning it into the Youth Employment Agency, and a new regulation that would ensure that it is adequately streamlined. Now, let's get on to a subject. In the course of the discussions, we'll be joined by the Member of Parliament for Ayawaso West Wagon, and he was able to win his primaries. And so we'll have to say congratulations to him in advance as he enters the studio. And Emmanuel Tremantejapo is his name. He'll be joining us shortly, I'm sure. The National Security has been tasked to conduct thorough investigations into the leakage of the 2015 Basic Education Certificate Examination question papers. We've had this being announced by Alex Trevor, who is the Deputy Education Minister, said the investigations will also be independent of what the West African Examination Council will be undertaking. And following that, we've had 5 papers that have been botched, so to speak. So they have to, quite unprecedented, you have to say about the scale, the magnitude of the leakage.
Yes.
Albeit, of course, aided by technology.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going to go. That
the world has changed.
The world has changed, and this time students are very adept at using technology, and therefore the ability to pass information around is now easier. WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook just sends the message across. But I have a fundamental problem with the West African Examinations Council.
What about?
Why can they drill down to what actually led to the leakage? Was it in the movement of examination papers, in the formation of the questions, in the printing of the questions? What exactly happened? Because if you can't address those issues, you cannot consequently place the blame only on students. Something must have happened somewhere. Was it in the formulation of the questions? Was it in the printing of the question papers? Was it in the transportation of the questions papers? Was it in the security storage department? What happened? I think those are the things that the National Security coming in as an outside agency would have to look at and establish. Because questions going to students and they passing it around is because they have it. If they don't have it, they won't have anything to pass around. So we need to find out what exactly happened. And for an agency that has existed over a very long period with a very good track record, this is a blemish on its record, especially the skill. And you cannot blame them for the skill because there's a use of technology. You know, a click of a button sends the message. It goes, the word they use is what? Viral. And everybody gets it. So it is. I read a story and I was worried about a parent admitting that he bought for 200 CDs.
What were you worried about? Is it a trend or the indiscipline of the parent to buy?
Exactly. The indiscipline of the parent to buy. So what are you teaching your kids? That it's all right to do illegal things? It's all right to buy examination questions? Her or his argument might be he didn't want his board to be disadvantaged. But there is something called moral turpitude. Is that what you want your kids to get used to? That you have to break the law, condone illegality in terms of some of these things? Those are critical things that we need to look at. But they should have a proper investigation to establish how this happened.
But beyond the investigation have been decades of suspicion that over time, during such periods when the examinations are conducted at these levels, sometimes there are leakages somewhat from the West African Examination Council. And it could be from your days to my days, or even days before or years before, so to speak.
Yes, it has always been there, but we've also had situations where these leakages turn out to be hoaxes.
A lot of them.
They give you a lot of questions to go and study. At the end of the day, none appears, and you are left with between you and your paper. You see, there is nothing that deals with this issue than studying. Bottom line, studying as a student, applying yourself to the text that you are given so that you can go and write and answer questions. You know, that is it. But we've had these things. But you see, we need to get to a point where we can say the credibility of West African Examinations Council is up there when it comes to conducting examinations. We need to get to that point, and it can be done. It's a human institution, yes, but there are systems, checks and balances in the system that can address these things carefully. You understand? The security systems we put in place with regards to even coding question papers. Those are some of the things that they need to begin to apply. Just as students are applying technology to send questions out, the examination council should start looking at applying technology. You know, in other jurisdictions, examination questions are printed school by school, but here we group all of them together and they write. And this can be done if they think clearly about it, on what day to print the examination questions.
Because times have changed, you say.
Exactly. Can we print all the questions within a time for 12-hour guard where they are printed and it's out? A clearly mandated security printing establishment with a good track record where leakages don't happen. You understand? Where you motivate and give the staff there good salaries so that they don't have the tendency and propensity to conduct some of these things. Transportation, that's where a lot of the things, when we are transferring the question papers from the printing presses to the offices, that little transition period, what happens?
Is that not the period when, especially within that very period of transportation, that they having the right company that will do the printing, because then they could have security marks and checks on how they are.
That's exactly what
they are packaged.
Exactly.
That's what you're referring to.
That's what I'm referring to. We need to begin to apply technology to some of these things so that we can avert putting students' academic careers in jeopardy the way it's gone now. You know, some of these things we need to drill down deep and get a proper understanding.
How does that become a blemish on not the reputation only of the West African Examination Council, but, so to speak, the reputation of the educational system that we have out there to the wider international public?
Well, the blemish is the fact that when you come through educational system, because there is the admission that you get access to examination questions before you write them, it means the credibility of the test itself is not there. That is it. And when the credibility of the test is not there, anybody who is looking at your certificate having come from that system looks at it with a lot of trepidation that, oh, did they get it right, or they had access to it. That is where the problem is. And it goes a long way, because when you face these issues, it places more impediments in your way towards getting additional education, because they think you do not qualify, you are not meritorious in terms of how you got your certificate. And that is what is worrisome. It's not everybody who engages in some of these things, but you see, you broad brush everybody. So when you came through the system and there were leakages, they all went through the same system, you know. And for me, that's what is worrying.
Having studied abroad, especially in the US, and having worked consistently over the period, and having been an educationist yourself, lectured for a lengthy point in time, do you think that currently, as it is, we always need to be having a body like the West African Examination Council, which would always be independent of whatever the not necessarily interference, but perhaps the complementary contributions of the host countries?
Well, you see, the West African thing is good. It gives the sub-region a bigger body. Contributions come from the agents, countries that enable it to be run effectively. It also, you know, now there's groupings for everything. COMESA, the COMESA group, the East African Economic Community, the South African Bloc, the Maghreb region. And it is how the world is grouping. There's the Eurozone, now there's the North American Free Trade Area, Canada, USA, Mexico, and they look at a lot of these things from that kind of perspective. So it is good to have it there. However, if you want individual countries to take leading roles, that can be done. You understand? Because I understand the leadership of the exams can rotate among the various countries. If that is so, the leadership roles must come in strongly so that some of these things are done. Otherwise, a whole block gets wiped out because we don't do things right, so to speak. But that should not happen. We should take a more leadership role in terms of how these things are resolved.
Okay. The Deputy Minister has announced that the National Security will do an independent investigation as well. How can that be done if perhaps also we don't tend to see the linkage with the West African Examination Council's own investigation?
Well, you can start from our ambit as Ghana. You can drill down, like the issues I raised initially. When was the printing done? Where was it done? When did they transport the materials to the secure storage department? When did they leave secure storage to the examination centers? You know, if you drill down on all of these things and find out exactly, establish whether they were coded even in the transportation process, the release process, who signed for what, at what time. These are some of the things that national security can look at clearly and come up with solutions. It's to take a little bit of investigative work, but it can be done. And we can drill down to where the source of all these things are, you know.
Okay, so what actions do you think that the West African Examination Council should take now, currently? Now, we've had suspension of some 5 papers.
Yes. You'll have to rewrite the papers, which means you'll have to postpone and reschedule these papers for the students. And they have to put in more tighter control so that the next set of papers do not go through the same phase. You know, I mean, they have to go back to the drawing board, you know, and get some of these things right.
Okay. All right. Your appointment, has it been made public?
Yes, an announcement, I understand, has been made. And
okay.
Yeah, so it's public knowledge.
You've been written to formally?
I am waiting for the letter.
Usually
the announcement comes and then the letter follows.
Okay. Sounds like a revolutionary period. Don't mind about my comments, though.